This is the Constitutional Convention packet summary and questions that we'll go over right now. So here are just some screenshots, so just follow along for the people that might not have gotten all the answers here in class. So I've kind of highlighted what we wanted to focus in on that back page. So that first one basically asks you, the delegates at the convention included these types of people. So if you look at the passage, I'm going to just highlight what the answers may be, and that would be plantation owners can go over here, bankers and politicians, and then also signers of the Declaration of Independence and those who had fought in the Revolution. So what I put over here was basically those things: plantation owners, bankers, politicians, and signers of the Declaration of Independence. That should be an I. And veterans. Okay. Also, you may have, in the next part where it says the delegates included these people, you may have James Madison and George Washington, so you can put those there as well. Moving on to the next one, it tells you right here in this little block with Washington being right here. I'm George Washington, that's him down here, not him, that's Madison. Was the president of the convention. At the president of the convention, I swore everyone to secrecy, so that way they could discuss things and not have to have reports of what they said in the room. It was just between the men, so that's what goes in that box. Eventually, Madison will release the notes of what he took through the summer of 1787, but he won't do it until after he dies. And Madison, I believe, lives to the ripe old age of 85, so that's well into the 1830s. Most of the members had passed. So moving over to James Madison's plan, so the first one that was introduced was the Virginia Plan. So in my Virginia Plan, take a look up here, was written by Madison. He's going to have 3 branches of government. So we go over here, we look 1, 2, and 3. So you can fill those then in here with those 3 branches. And you've got those 3 shown right here. All right. The other part says Congress is based on population, and you will find that right here in the passage. So in his legislative branch, he wanted both houses, Senate and House of Representatives, to both be based upon population. Now that's not going to be the way it is today, but that was his original proposal. Moving on to New Jersey Plan. So right down here, you have the small states have their response to it. And so in the New Jersey Plan, they have their own, and they basically say all states should have an equal number of votes. So all states have 1 vote is their suggestion. Now there's a slight change to their plan from the articles, and that is they do say that the federal government is the final power and that the final answer belongs to the federal government, not the states. So, and it says here, large states objected to that plan because obviously that way everybody would be equal, making states like Virginia not more powerful than tiny states like New Jersey or Delaware. We're going to move to the Great Compromise, basically a mixture between the Madison Plan and then the New Jersey Plan put out by William Patterson, governor of that state. So here in the passage, you can sort of see the answers. So first part is the 2-house legislature from Madison's original. Then they have equal representation in the Senate. That comes obviously from the New Jersey Plan over here. And then finally, in the compromise that dealt with the legislative branch, they want representation in the House based upon population. That would be from the Virginia Plan. So you can sort of see it's a mix and match, a little bit more Virginia Plan than it is New Jersey Plan. And it's the work of Roger Sherman from Connecticut. So what you can have up here, and you can stop the presentation anytime, these are the answers you should have up in this box. Now that we've figured out that representation in one of the 2 houses is going to be based on population, we have to figure out another compromise. So whereas the Great Compromise was between large populated states and small populated states, the next compromise is going to be between 2 other parts of different types of subjects. So that would be obviously this part of the chart. So let's take a look at it. So how do you count for the enslaved African Americans in representation in Congress? So as we talked about in class, northern states didn't want to count any and southern states wanted to count all. And so what they came up with was a compromise where they come up with only counting a portion, or 3/5. So you can sort of see that. So it says, these three count. Those would be African slaves count in the population of southern states. These other two slaves would not count. So as we discussed, the South did a little bit better because they were able to count more than half of their slaves as part of their population. So slaves are going to be counted, but only 3/5 of them. The last part over here, second to last, is about slavery. So if we look in the passage where they talk about the slavery debate, it answers the questions, because too many students wrote down just like slavery is bad. Okay, we can do better than that. And also you should use the actual document summary to help you out. So basically what you should say is slavery is the domain or the issue of the states. That's a state issue. But what about the slave trade, meaning bringing new slaves in? If you look down here, they talk about it in this part. So they say that they don't have the power to stop it until 1808. So the southern states do agree to that the international slave trade will stop in 1808. And then the fugitive slaves. Now, fugitives are runaways. And here in this last part, they talk about that there is a fugitive slave law placed into the Constitution dealing with runaway slaves, meaning slave owners did have the right to go after and claim their property in other states. In class, we did talk about several classes about Washington himself had a slave run away from him when he was president of the United States and he was living in Philadelphia. So interesting story if you want to look out there for those stories about his runaway. The last part here is this last box on the side. Hopefully nobody forgot about it. So I just flipped it around. It says our new Constitution includes, so if we look at the passage, so the new Constitution includes this, something known as checks and balances. We're going to get into that more in the last section of the textbook of Chapter 7. And also the 3 branches of government. So that's what you should have up here. A system of checks and balances and 3 branches of co-equal branches of government. Legislative, judicial, and executive. So that ends that part of the chart and our review over it.